surroundings will be publicly available. And it looks like we have that notice up there. We acknowledge that. And if you speak with your camera off or by calling on a telephone, only your voice will be recorded. And you're welcome to do either of those things. Calling the meeting to order pursuant to Chapter 4230 RCW, the Open Meetings Act, we need to inform everybody that our board meetings are open to the public. Due to COVID-19 outbreak and the governor's stay-at-home order, this meeting of the Chuckanut Community Forest Park District will be conducted online on Zoom. I'd like to, if someone could review the agenda and make a motion to approve it or amend it, I'd appreciate that.
I'll move.
All right, so I hear a motion. Do I hear a second? If people want to take a minute to look it over, that's totally fine. It's a busy agenda. We're going to work hard to get done on time.
I second.
John Brown seconded. Is there further discussion about any additions or deletions or corrections in the agenda? Hearing none, we'll have the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 You.
We have a consensus about that. We do not have, again, in our discussion at this point, John McLaughlin. Everyone else voted in favor of passing the agenda. Having approved the agenda, let's move on to the minutes from our prior meetings. There's actually two sets of minutes, one from September 10th. And for those who were there, people would recall that was the urban forest presentation on the urban forest plan, and the September 22nd regular meeting. I'd like, if people could review those minutes, and if there were after that review a motion to approve them, I'd be excited to accept that. Did people have a chance to review those?
I reviewed the minutes from the last meeting, and I make a motion to approve the minutes for the September 10th and the 22nd meetings.
Is there a second? Or if people need more time to review, that's fine too. But if somebody feels like seconding, please do.
I'll second.
I'm in a meeting. Can I call you back in a minute? Thanks. Bye.
John Hymas will second.
Meeting and second, there's a lot of complicated minutes there, and I read through them, and there was a lot of detail, and it all looked right to me. But anybody have any additions, deletions, or corrections of those minutes? I got to say, Robin, you took incredibly detailed notes, and I found them very useful. So thank you very much for all that detailed work. Very, very helpful.
Well, I have to give credit to the city because I used their transcript for the September 10th meeting. The 22nd, though, was from memory and notes because I forgot to record the meeting. So, but we're recording today.
Yep, the little red light is flashing.
Yeah.
Lane Potter's also joined us, just to note that for the record, and also Barbara Zylstra, an old and good friend of the Chuckanut Ridge area. And welcome, Barbara. I'm glad you were able to make it.
Thanks.
We've had a motion and a second to approve the minutes of those two meetings. Would anybody, if there's no further discussion, I'd like to call the question. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye. John Brown, you vote?
I can't because I wasn't there for the last meeting.
So you can vote on were you there on the 10th?
Yes.
Okay.
I vote yes on that.
All right. Okay, and Hugh, I didn't hear. Did you vote yes?
Aye, yeah.
Aye, there we go. So that again is unanimous with one abstention, with John Brown abstaining from the meeting of the 22nd. But basically unanimous of the voters voting in favor with that one exception.
And John Hymas wasn't on the 10th, so that's just Frank and Hugh and John Brown for the 10th meeting.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Let the record show that that's the case then. Thank you. I got a bunch of documents on my desktop and it's small, so pardon me while I swizzle around here. We'd like to open the meeting to public comment. Please limit your time to 3 minutes, but anybody that's here, please feel free. And I would encourage you to speak up and bring up any issue you'd like, including prior issues with the things on our agenda today, if you like. If there's substantial discussion about an issue, we would ask that you refrain from comments about anything we'll be voting on tonight. But in general, would anybody like to make a public comment in this public comment period? Lane, you and Oliver, you and Nicole are both here, of course. Barbara, anything you'd like to say tonight?
Well, I just am curious about the planning for the Ridge or the 100-acre woods. And so that's why I'm coming tonight, because I haven't drafted a letter yet. And I have spoken to all of you previously, so nothing really has changed in my views. It was interesting because I participated in the counting of users on Saturday and Monday, and engaged with a number of people about what they thought. And most of them had not filled out the survey, but I said I could forward their comments. So, you know, I did, I wrote them down. People are very concerned. The people I saw were very concerned that it stay a wild place and not become a park. So.
Thank you, Barbara. We look forward to that letter and we'll include it in our record. Thank you. Anything else? There's a person named Collender, at least that's what's on the sheet. And if you'd like to speak, please feel free to unmute and say whatever you'd like to have us hear. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. Great. I don't see anybody else. And Robin, is that the extent of our guests tonight? Well, welcome to both of you, and we look forward to your thoughtful participation. And if you have, there will be time at the end. We can once again open it up at the end for additional comments if there are additional comments through the meeting. So thank you for your participation so far, and we look forward to hearing more. The agenda items moving forward, John Hymas, or I guess John, our Johns are here today tonight. Any news from the Park Advisory Board meeting?
I didn't make the Zoom meeting, so I hope John has insight.
Mr. Blethyn.
My feeble memory says that they're aware that there's a process going on, and it's not yet time for feedback. That's my belief. Nicole might have more insight than that.
I guess there's a bunch of things that we covered at Park Board, but I don't think this particular topic was on the agenda for the planning. I think we just gave a little update on it. So everyone's aware that it's going on, and yeah.
Well, thank you, Nicole, for that comment and for updating the Park Board so that we can coordinate what they're doing and what we're doing. At the end of the day, that's a very important partnership, and we're delighted to have John keeping us abreast, but even happier to have you here to join us as well, Nicole. Thank you. The next issue is really to talk about some of our old business, the master planning process, the collaboration between the Park District and the Parks Department to help with the master planning process is going forward. After Bob suggested that special meeting, a joint meeting on the 10th, and the steering committee for the master plan, we're looking at how we can cooperate going forward. I feel like it's going really well. I'm participating on that. There are other people. I'd be happy to have anyone else that's participated in these events speak up as well. I'm very, very happy with Nicole's leadership and Lane's leadership in your absence last time, Nicole. She's done a great job. And I think we're moving forward quickly and efficiently. And there are issues that we'll talk about, and they're specific, I think, but I think overall the process and the facilitator you've got is really wonderful. He's really a fair-minded guy that keeps us moving along. So I really appreciate that leadership as well. Would anybody else participate in that process care to comment on it? The steering committee for the master planning process?
Well, yeah, I think the last meeting was very productive and important because Nicole and Lane presented us with the outline of the master plan, a 2-page document with bullet points of what the master plan, what we could expect the master plan to consist of. And so I don't know if now is the time to go through it or how you want to lead this, Frank.
I think now is the time to go through it. So Vince, I think I welcome your
Okay.
comments
Well,
about it. And,
Yeah, I have.
I did send it out to, I don't think I sent it to you, but I sent it to all the board members. Should have had a copy of this some time ago.
Right, right. And then during the last steering committee meeting last Friday at 8 a.m., Lane had this up on her screen, and as we were discussing it, she actually wrote in the edits to this draft. So I don't have quite that edited draft, but basically we had the introduction, which would be the purpose, the summary, the goals, the planning process, and then the existing conditions, the site description, the history, site history, and then plans for the future. What are the big picture items? The main loop trails, who's going to maintain it, what the current uses are, what is the ecological and hydrologic function, safety issues and erosion issues. So things like that. And then the next section was restoration and what trail removal and restoration we want to do, any realignments off of steep areas, mitigation, again, hydrologic connections, vegetation, removal of invasive plants and trash. One thing I had a question mark is like, fill the drainage ditch in the northwestern arm of wetland JJ. I don't know about that, and then restoring wildlife habitat, but maybe not necessarily beaver habitat, or anyway, that issue. This document, I think, may be too general to specify which habitat. I'm not sure how that's going to go. And then site improvements and the phasing of the action plan. Like, what are we going to do first? What's our priority? Second, and then third. So Lane or Nicole, you want to add to that, or anybody have any questions on what the steering committee is doing?
Well, I would just add, that was a good recap of the outline, and there is, we do have content, and I really appreciated the feedback we got. I did get a pretty good overview of how that meeting went and some of the conversations that happened. We had another meeting today with David Roberts, and are looking at the schedule and trying to really make sure that we have enough time given our schedule. And I think we're going to adjust the when we do that open house, I'd like to adjust that to the beginning of December. I think we need to have 2 meetings with the steering committee before we go to the open house. I just want to remind you all that this is, we're trying to, it's a very different area than we have master planned in the past. And so I really want to have a pretty clear vision and parameters of what this plan is going to include, how it's going to be limited, what those early action items are, the kind of the core trail plan, which it sounds like we have pretty solid agreement on that core trail plan. And I think we need to have those things dialed in pretty well before we do the open house and get feedback to refine anything. But I think it seems like things are moving along well. It seems like we need to do a little more thinking about bikes. And I think we're going to engage a consultant. We have someone in mind to help make sure that the prioritization of improvements from ecological function and kind of trail design makes sense. So we're going to get someone on board rather quickly to help us with that work and improve the quality of the maps. I think we'll have time to kind of do some along the lines of the more rudimentary maps that we've been using in the planning process for the open house. And then within the next by January or early February, be ready to have a complete package to take through the approval and review process. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think it's been a great group. It's a very smart group. And so, and I think the feedback that we've gotten and the use of Engage Bellingham, putting out a video to give an overview of that outline and some of the limitations on uses that we're imagining and some of the overall goals of the plan just will be very reassuring for some that might be concerned, like you mentioned, Barbara, that there's going to be some sort of parkish development, because I think we're all very much in agreement that this is a wild and special place, and the goals are restoration and protection and using it for education and recreation, but to really be a very natural place. So I would like to see a little more detail. I'd like to work with the steering committee to get a little more detail on some of those early actions. We have a couple of ideas we've been talking about that we're going to talk about with the committee. I think this is a great opportunity to really think about this space in a different way than perhaps we have in some of our other park properties. And I'd like to try some things out, but we do need to get feedback from the community, and we're committed to that too as part of the process. That's about it.
A couple things that I thought were interesting was the Stimson Reserve was mentioned as a natural area that has been developed by the County Parks Department, and they have no dogs allowed there, and it's got some nice trails, and it's got some places where you have over wetlands even, I think. I haven't been through it all, but I've been in a little bit of it. And so that's something we could look at a little bit for examples. And I had a thought after that meeting I was listening to. I recorded the sound. I was listening to it over yesterday to remind myself what was talked about. And one thing that Vincent brought up that was about fire protection and how we can, and there's a fire hydrant over by Viewcrest on Chuckanut there. And I was thinking with the climate warming up, and we're having very spotty rains, but a lot of sometimes in the winter when we got nothing to do with them, that we might take the old quarry, which will never get remediated, and line it with a little bentonite clay and fill it up with water as best we can in the winter months, and then have a pump there, and it would be a good fire protection for the whole area. And animals and stuff could drink out of it also in the drier times. So that's something that could be added to the plan, maybe, that in a future time. Of course, we couldn't budget for it today, but it would as things get worse, I think that'd be one way to save that forest from burning down. And I remember, like, Hoag's Pond used to be a gravel mine to begin with too, and they wound up with a good pond there. So that's all for me for the moment.
Thanks, Hugh. Yeah. Other comments or insights from people who participated, or I had a couple things, concerns that I had. One was that I think that in terms of trail planning, it seems like there's still some very big steps to go. And I was really happy to hear just now that you're thinking about bringing in a consultant. The standard for the city, the 6 foot wide, bermed trail, certainly is going to be appropriate in some places, but there's going to need to be trails that aren't 6 feet wide. I think, I hope so anyway, that there are places that can be smaller trails and allow that flexibility. And other jurisdictions have trail standards that are for different kinds of trails. I know Seattle has some. I hope that we explore the opportunities for the types of trails that might be cited in different places, and not just that one standard the city has so far. And in that respect, I think a consultant would be immensely helpful. That might bring in some of those other standards and allow us to have some options besides the standard 6 foot berm trail. The second thing was that part of one of the meetings was a presentation about the cost of putting in the over wetland piece just to the north of our parcel in Fairhaven Park. And my understanding is that those kind of trails can run into the $1,000 per foot range when you consider not just the construction, which is actually not the majority of the cost, but all the remediation and monitoring and expert consultation is necessary. I hope that consultant could also address that, because one of the features of this parcel that I hope that children can see and can participate in is an over wetland walkway that would allow them to access some, not all, but some of the wetlands, so that they could fully appreciate, not just children, but adults as well, what a mature forested wetland actually looks like and how it functions. And yet do that in a way that would prevent people getting into the wetland itself. I know it's expensive. I know there are difficult issues about how to do that. And I think it would probably take some expert consultation to work that out. Are those issues that might be addressed? Is that the sort of thing you were thinking of, Nicole, in what might be addressed by this additional input?
I think so. We've done a couple different types of feasibility, and I think the critical, the thing that we have to keep in mind with this plan is it's not going to absolutely answer every question. It's not going to design and it's not what it needs to do is identify the first things we need to do right away that we can do soon. It needs to set the goals and standards and criteria by which we make future improvements. And it needs to prioritize those. So what I want to see from a consultant is a review of where we're at right now. We've identified a lot of different places that we need to improve the hydrology. Which one should we do first? Yeah. And then we can, that will really help us appropriate the proper funding. Every time we build a boardwalk, we're going to have to study that whole area, the impacts. We're going to have to do mitigation. We put in any structure in a sensitive area, It's a big project, so we're going to do one at a time. But what I'd like to do is get a couple of things done pretty soon. Like when we're done with this plan, I want to do some things that will really help narrow and focus the main trails, minimize the type of degradation that's happening, start to work on replanting the areas that are really wide. Those couple key trails that we've identified that I think everyone's agreed that need to go away, let's get rid of those. So those are those early, easy action items. And then what I think the consultant can help with is make sure that our ideas or help us decide which things should go first as far as those priorities for projects. And then I definitely do not want to put limestone built trails throughout this forest. So let's just be really clear about that. I think we need to just do one, maybe just one along the roadbed that goes between Fairhaven Park and the interurban trail. Let's just improve that and say that's our first one. We would have very minimal wetland impacts from doing an improvement. We could make that be the main trail and then do wayfinding and then all of the stuff to the south of that, it's going to be one at a time. We're going to have to do some, if we want to, that one trail, that one section, you walk in it in the winter and it's a creek. We've got to reroute that. That's going to be a big project. We would never improve anything and without really getting the impact of the trail out of that sensitive area. So those are bigger projects. So and those could be down the road. We don't have to. We identify the priority. Let's be realistic about the early action items and then have someone help us evaluate what next things should be done first. I think our own environmental planner has said which hydrologic connections she would like to see prioritized. Let's get somebody else to just evaluate that and give us some ideas. But that's what I see that person doing and helping us with some better graphics. And also, I just want to say that the park standard for a trail does not have a width. It depends on where we build the trail. So there are some built trails through really sensitive areas that are only 4 feet wide. And then our big arterial trails, that's where we put in a much wider limestone with a shoulder where we have really busy traffic and we want people to be, commuting on those. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to get us kind of the next. I want to get us rather quickly into the next phase using everything we've heard so far. Let's articulate this stuff clearly in a visual way and get the steering committee to kind of build some consensus around where we're headed and then do the public open house. And then we'll be better able to fine tune it. And we may need to refer in this plan to other studies. I know you have spoken as a board multiple times now about an RFP, but I still don't know what exactly you're hoping to do. And I believe from what I heard from the assessor's office, the debt is going to be paid off this year. So, I think we're really well situated. I think we have a really good, we're all kind of on the same page, it seems like. So I'm feeling really good about it, but I think we need to fine tune the elements and make some real clear interactive ways for the public to respond to where we're headed and make sure that we have consensus and then pull it all together and take it through the legislative process.
So you're thinking of hiring a trail consultant to get help with the trail plan, but it's a bigger vision than that? Do they do other things as well?
Well, the company that we're thinking about also could help with the graphics. We want the graphics to look really good. Our graphics have been, Lane is awesome. don't get me wrong, but we don't have, you know, sometimes with a plan like this, there's an opportunity to make, you know, even the signage, the sign that we want to make for the wayfinding, I'd like for that to be a little more polished. And maybe have some close-ups in different areas in the You Are Here map. It's a big map, and I'm not sure that full You Are Here map. I think we need to have some smaller directional signage as well that would be good to have someone help us with.
Mhm. And the budget you have to work with is about $25,000 for the whole project? Is
We
that an
spent
estimate?
we spent 10 on our facilitator, who's going to take us through the full project. But so I'm hoping to get some help. So what the difference between the thing with consultants, if you give them what you already believe to be the case and have them fine tune it and review it, it's much cheaper than have them starting from scratch. We don't need to start from scratch. We know where we're headed. We know what we want. We just need to have them review it, maybe tweak it a little bit, and then make it look really good. That's a much cheaper consultant than, you know, starting from scratch and evaluating something from scratch. And a lot of times, you know, we did not hire a consultant on purpose to do this master plan because we have so much of the content and the data already. And it's really about prioritizing the few bits of improvements that we want to do. And then marking that main trail and talking about how we want to, what we want to do about bikes.
Yeah.
Seems like, and you
Bikes
didn't mention
and
dogs, but I think dogs are also a major
Yeah.
issue of contention, I think. Those
I
are
think
the-
dogs are, you know, I think that one of the things with dogs, I just walked I went in there again today after our meeting to just remind myself again of exactly where that road was. And I saw 3 bikes on that main loop heading straight across. And so maybe that's the only place we allow bikes. And everywhere else you get off your bike. If you want to walk in the rest of the park. I mean, that would be a really new thing for Bellingham, but this is the place we could try it. That's just an idea.
Mhm. The university has a plan where they actually design places where bikes go so that they tee and you can't really bike through them. You have to get off. I mean, they did that on purpose to keep high-speed biking from running into people.
Mhm.
John McLaughlin, you raised your hand. Welcome, John. The records should probably show that John's here. Thanks for joining us. And what did you have to say, John?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm sorry for jumping in late. And if anything I mention or request information for you've already addressed, please scold me and I'll shut up. So I have to say that everything I've read, received, or heard from Nicole and from Lane and other staff in the Parks Department, I found to be a far superior quality than anything I've seen come out of the Planning Department. And so when you talk about relying on the expertise of the Planning Department, I get really nervous. And that has a history with this place where the Planning Department was trying to grease the skids to allow this place to be destroyed, including a lot of the issues regarding wetlands, wetland hydrology, and I mean, the maps of the wetlands still show errors from the developers' consultants in connection with those wetlands. I've also, in my private life, have reported a number of critical areas ordinance violations, even including violations conducted on city property. And I've reported them to the Planning Department's code office, a couple different code officers, and they've ignored them. They've excused them. So, and I don't think I'm alone in the community of my experience in and lack of trust with the planning department. So I have great confidence in you and your group and the work you're doing here. But I get really nervous when I hear any reliance on the planning department and any kind of decisions and stewardship regarding this place. Thank you.
Hey, John, do you think that, if I may ask, that the wetland study that's in the baseline report is correct? Because that's what we're relying on.
If the most obvious error, if you look in the wetland maps, is the division of wetland CC into wetland CC1 and CC2.
Mm-hmm.
So suppose the maps essentially show an isthmus of terrestrial soil between those two sections. That's continuous wetland.
Okay.
Frank got one of the state's foremost wetland experts to go out there, who verified using several different kinds of evidence that is continuous wetland.
Okay.
But the planning department has allowed, the error in that maps to continue.
Okay. Thanks for that. That's good. That's really good insight. I appreciate it.
Historically, a document to consider looking at is there's actually a community EIS. We actually completed an EIS document by hiring consultants and by volunteer consultants that existed for this property back in, and we did in fact hire experts to come in and look at those things again. And that document is available if you'd like, or I could make it available. There's both an electronic copy and a written one.
I think we have all that. We have those documents, I believe.
I don't want to dismiss or say you shouldn't rely on planning staff, and they're an important resource. But I think there are additional resources that we should use to complement their expertise. And again, I would get really nervous if we were relying entirely on an entity that has a mixed record with this place.
Thanks, John. Vinca, has raised your hand. Vinca?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to chime in about the dogs, because one of the things that our survey showed, and I will be reporting on this later, but one of the things was 229 people entered the forest on Saturday, and on Monday it was 290. So close, between 200 and 300 people in there and out a day. But the people with dogs was 30% both days. It was like 30 and 33% of the people had dogs. So that is, to my mind, that's a big problem. There was one suggestion that we should count the people walking out of the forest with a dog poop bag, because that would tell you who's really being responsible. And I think having 30% of the people in there with a dog every day is a staggeringly high number to me.
Even though there are, clearly there's not supposed to be dogs off leash as well.
Yeah, I mean,
And
that
that's-
is aside from the leash off leash area.
Yeah,
thing.
but I think that's partly, some of that's on us for not having done a better job of getting it properly signed
Exactly.
before
Yeah,
this,
education.
and an expectation. And that's led to people using it as an off-leash dog area. And that's something that I think
Yep.
is going to be very difficult to be consistent with the values of preserving this for wildlife. While we were there, and Vince knows this, but I did the early shift on the
Saturday.
side next to the beaver pond, and these joggers said, "Oh, there's a dog off leash," and I looked up the trail, and there was quite a large bobcat that hopped up from the beaver pond and walked down the trail probably 30 or 40, maybe 50 feet, very
Yeah.
leisurely. And this is when there was a pretty extensive use of the trail by then. It's probably 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then it walked off up towards Hoag's Pond. And I think it's the female I see down in Chuckanut Village. But this is, I think the male partner is quite large, actually. But there clearly is very extensive use of this by animals, deer. Obviously, the cougar goes through there sometimes of the year, and the bobcats. And these are going to be very difficult to reconcile with off-leash animals, I think. And we really need to, at the soonest possible time, clarify that this is definitely not an off-leash dog area. So thanks, Vince, for bringing that up.
I'd like to talk about dogs too. Okay.
You,
I did a little research, just reading through the park department stuff. There's 3,649 acres of parks. We are 1/364th of that, our little parcel. 14 community parks, there's 24 neighborhood parks. There are no dogs allowed at Big Rock Garden, at Woodstock Farm, on the playgrounds, in the spray parks, the field, and the ball fields. So there is places where dogs are not allowed, and I'd like to not allow dogs in our park or in our forest, because we need to have wildlife establish itself better in there. And there's plenty of places to walk your dog. Every sidewalk, every street, you can walk your dog. Plus you have all these other parks, thousands of acres of other parkland that you can walk your dog. So, and as I was saying earlier, the Stimson Reserve, which is a natural area, there's no dogs allowed there. That's a county park or county reserve or whatever. So I like to move it. We don't allow dogs in this, so it can establish itself as wildlife.
I think maybe not time for a motion now, but we could certainly consider that at a later time. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Nicole, the concerns that I had about the process that I've seen outlined so far is that I think there are very serious issues about the hydrology. There are connections that have been manufactured and drained some of the wetlands already. There's a large ditch through the middle of the thing. There are a variety of issues that I think are not well understood. And I also think that there's a considerable issue around the spot that Hugh wants to put a fire retention pond. I think it's a great idea, but I think it would need more study before anybody was going to do that. Likewise, I think there's a great deal needed before we determine where the trails will be and what kind of trails should be there, all the way down to the standards level and a variety of standards. To that end, a number of meetings ago, we approved a budget just a little larger than what you have to get a consultant or consultants together that would provide some of that expert consultation to the process. Not meaning to be adversarial at all, just wanting to make sure there was an adequate resource to consider those issues of hydrology and of planning with respect to the trail system, so that we didn't rush into it and get it wrong, but rather had the expertise to move forward methodically and in a very informed way. Certainly the graphics and things, that's great for the program to do. I don't think we have any interest in that at all. It's a very valid interest from the process, but we really wanted to see that the science got done on the front end so we didn't make mistakes. This is kind of our last attempt to be helpful. And we did that rather large amount, knowing that the city was a little short on funds to get this done and trying to be as positive and supportive as we can of the process. So I think there has been concern. It was a unanimous vote to put that much money into it. It's been slower to come about, and part of that's my fault, but it's been crazy busy. But we do have an RFP that'll be looked at today to allow us to let a bid out for some additional consultation. We want that to be in service of the process that's going on. But I think we really do feel that that we need more expert consultation on issues like hydrology, like trail planning, like how you can successfully have bicycles and people on the same trails, and how you could successfully either allow or not allow dogs into the area. Those are I think some of the issues that really need as much expertise as we can get. So
I remember coming to your board meeting in the basement of the Fairhaven Library about 2.5 years ago and urging you to get some consultants on board to start working on this. So we're a little bit behind schedule on that, but we do have, I think that the person that we're looking to hire does have some good expertise in trails and hydrology, and they want to help. So that's also really great. But we welcome whatever you're able to contribute to the process and help us evaluate, what we're coming up with. But it's time to start making some decisions, I think, and start putting forward some concepts. And then, we don't have to, like I keep saying, every time we're going to decide to actually do something, we're going to have to do all the environmental studies to make sure we do it right. Just like and that was the purpose of Todd's explanation of what it took to improve that one horrific crossing. It's a big deal, and it takes years, and it's a lot of time. And so, we don't have to have all the answers in order to have a plan. It's the implementation that you really dial into each spot, and you have to really look at all of it very carefully. But I think we have an awful lot of information that we can use to make the plan. But again, I would welcome any help and consultation you're able to get us.
super.
I actually have got to go. I have another meeting and I have to eat something. So it's great to see you all, and I really appreciate all your efforts and your I think we're doing a great job on this plan. I feel really good about it. I hope.
Can I say one thing, Frank? And Nicole, you have mentioned this consultant. This will take 30 seconds, Nicole. We are in the process of hiring a consultant. We're going to talk more about that in our meeting. But assuming that we do hire a consultant, then the obvious solution, Frank, and the rest of the board members would seem to be that our consultant meets with Nicole's consultant. Does that sound right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And these two geniuses put their minds together and get it done. Then Lane doesn't have to do so much work, and Nicole can sit back and take a rest and let the consultants do it.
Hopefully she can get her neck better.
Yeah, I gotta go get some ice too.
Okay.
I froze my thing. Okay, thank
20
you guys
minutes,
so much.
20 minutes 4 times a day, okay? You got it?
Okay.
20 minutes 4 times.
That's
Thank
what
you,
the
Nicole.
chiropractor just said. All right.
Really
thank you, guys.
important.
Thank you for coming. Thank you,
You're
Lane.
welcome.
Thanks, Nicole.
Bye.
Great. Yeah, it was wonderful to have her support and endorsement for us going forward with that. I really think we want to be as cooperative and supportive and in service of the same goals as the city. That's a good thing. But also to bring expertise to it. So actually, is there any more information from the steering committee members? Any other additional information we didn't get on the plate? Yeah, Hugh, you have your hand up. Is that an old hand up or is that a new hand up?
Old hand, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll take it down.
Any additional comments from people that have participated in that process? All right. The next thing is the hiring a consultant. All of you should have gotten in your packet a copy of the RFQ that I've been working on for a long time, and Bob and his team put into a form that is legal and appropriate. And if you haven't had a chance to look at it, if you could take it out and take a quick look through it, and then I hope we can have some discussion about it. I'm pretty sure that one of the consultants that I've talked to is also the same consultant that Nicole is talking to. That would seem likely from, that's an inference on my part, but I think it's certainly part of the deal. And I think we have 3 different people that have expressed pretty strong interest in it. So I think there's a fair number of people with various skills and backgrounds that are quite interested in doing it. Bob,
Can you tip your hand and tell us anything about them, Frank, or do you want to wait on that until they submit their applications?
There's certainly just people that have expressed interest. I think there may well be many other people. And there's a process for identifying even more people if we wanted to do that.
Sure.
I think there is an interest. I know the city has a timeline they want to stick with, so I think we need to be as timely as possible in this process. But we also need to be as accurate and careful and science-based as we can be as well. Bob, did you want to say anything about this? You helped develop it in its final form. Any comments about process?
My comment, I think, and the challenge, if the board does decide to approve this, is the timing, which Nicole alluded to. We do need to get a consultant on board quickly if we're going to get one on board. I left those items blank, you'll notice, but you also notice that I had November and as the date, and under subsection 4E, I said applications will be considered by the board at its November blank meeting. The regular meeting is November 10th, which is really only 2 weeks. So if you approve sending out an RFQ tonight, I think the question is, when would the deadline be for getting it in, and when would you approve it? Unless there's a special meeting scheduled, it would have to be approved either at your November 10th meeting or your meeting in December.
It's too late.
I'm not sure when that December meeting is exactly, but that, that's getting off into the future a bit given the schedule that we have. So I think that's the biggest challenge right now, is the timing. The material that we have already, I think, is sufficient for a consultant to review and get a sense of what the board's priorities are. Obviously, this is just an attempt to identify what some of the things the board views are as most important, and it's iterative in the sense that a consultant would take direction from the board and modify their efforts according to board direction. But this was my best effort at the time, being now, of putting something together that would inform a consultant as to what they were being hired to do and what some of their expectations would be, along with giving them reference to documents and history. And I think anybody who ends up being seriously considered for this would know most of this already anyway and be familiar with many of these documents. But it's important to put them in here. It's important to put a budget. We did set it at the way it's written as not to exceed $30,000 based on prior motion from the board. So I think this is close enough. I recognize there may be some, the board didn't have a lot of time to review it and make edits, and I'm going to suggest there really isn't time to change it too much right now. Certainly some changes could be made, but we really need to decide when the deadline for applications would be and when the board would make a decision on hiring a consultant. Those are critical.
Well, I just add that the people that have expressed interest are very familiar with the parcel. There have been 3 different folks I've heard from that are interested in this, and they're all very familiar with the parcel already and the documents that would be necessary. So I think it's not an unreasonable thing to move this forward quickly. So in setting that date, I think we could put something down fairly soon. It's an RFQ process, and so what they would give us is their qualifications for doing the work that we've outlined, and we would select someone based on how the best qualified. It's not a bid process, and so there would be an amount, but the main thing we would look at is who's the most qualified, who has the best ability to deliver the deliverables we specified. And again, I think from my point of view, the things, most of these are issues that we've already done some time ago, issues we've raised some time ago. So it's really looking at the restoration and what needs to be restored and can be restored. It's going to talk about conservation, where in this part on this parcel are the priorities for conservation and how might those be achieved. And then the preservation of the parcel, how we can, with a very long-term view, what we'll need to set as priorities. I actually see this as very complementary to what the steering committee is currently doing. I mean, several people here are actually, Vince and John Blethyn are both on that committee with wearing other hats. And I think I'd be very interested in hearing their point of view about this. But really, this was meant to be in service of, to make sure that those issues of hydrology, those issues of trail planning are informed by the values that we hold dear and the long-term interest of the land itself and its ecologic integrity. John, since you've been involved in the planning process and Vincent as well, if either of you have comments, I would welcome hearing them.
There are two dates on page 4 and 5, Frank, of the RFQ. Two dates: application materials must be received by 5 o'clock November something, and then the board at its meeting on November, whatever it is, November 10th, is it, Robin? Or November 10th. Could we make this, Bob Carmichael and the rest of you, and Frank, could we make this all application materials must be received by November 5th? I mean, that will give them it'll give them 10 days to get their acts together if the advertisement goes in the paper tomorrow or wherever it gets published. And I don't know where it gets published, but it's going to have to, Robin's going to have to apparently filter it out to whatever venues are going to put out the call. And we would hope that the applications would be in by November some date. And then we would have time to consider the applications review them and discuss them at the November meeting. And the applicants we would want to meet, I'm just thinking out loud, Frank, the applicants that we would want to meet would come before us at the November meeting in an open session.
That seems like a good process, John. And
Yeah, and I have not seen the RFQ, so I can't comment.
I
But
apologize.
that's okay. But I mean, I'm sure you guys have the right.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about it.
Okay, assuming that the RFQ is okay, are we to make a motion right now, Frank, that this RFQ, make a motion that the RFQ be put into whatever venues it's supposed to be put so that people can begin to submit their applications? Where does this go, Bob?
I think that's exactly right. And Bob, I know that for a long time was the Linden paper and then it was the Bellingham Herald. Is there an official place where we put these things for the city?
Well, we could put it in the Herald if we choose to. We're not legally required to do that. We do want to get it out to as many people as we can. There are certain papers that are papers of record for publications of bidding. One is the Herald, one would be the Linden Tribune. There used to be a record journal in Ferndale. I don't know if that's still the case. I think the important thing is to get it out by whatever means we can. Maybe putting it in the Herald would be one good idea. I don't think you need to put it anyplace else if you put it in the Bellingham Herald in terms of a newspaper. It should go on our website. It should go out to our mailing list. And if there's some other ideas about how to get it out, I think we could certainly do that as well.
We're not going to send out this whole document that you have drawn up, Bob. We're not going to send that to the Herald, are we?
We don't know. We don't have to. We could do a summary of it, which actually I haven't done. So we would need to do that, get that to the Herald, and have this document referenced, perhaps where people could download it. That'd probably be the easiest. As part of where it goes, we basically have said it's mailed to our PO box. I'm going to suggest, given the shortness of time, that I was thinking November 5th as well, John, as a deadline, but then I also am thinking maybe November 8th would be giving people even a little more time. And then we wouldn't have as much time before the 10th, but we'd have a little bit of time if we could, we'd have the day before and the day of the meeting to look at the materials. We're not really going to have time to invite people to the meeting as a board. So I think maybe what the board should do is make a decision right now that anyone who submits an application would be invited to the board meeting on the 10th. You're not going to be able to do it any other way, I don't think. So that's kind of what I think, that's where we are. I think November 10th, given what we just heard Nicole say on their schedule, we want to have somebody on board now.
So let's put November 10th on that, on line E, and then November, is it the sense of the group to use November 5th or November 8th for the deadline?
I support Bob, November 8th, Frank. It creates a very narrow window, but to give them more time.
Sure. So November 8th for the application being due, and November 10th for our putting on the agenda for that meeting for deciding.
Robin?
I was just going to say that I can check the mail every day. And so if somebody sends something in, as soon as they send it in, I can send it out to all of you guys or,
Sure.
I was thinking for the advertisement, why don't we just say, go to our website and download the PDF and then that way the advertisement in the Herald won't cost a bunch of money, and I don't like to give them money anyway.
Right.
Agreed.
That's a
I agree
slur.
with that, Hugh. I think it should be brief.
You do the weekly with that little thing too.
The weekly might not be bad, Bob, but however you summarize it and put it in, there will be a link to our website for the full application or for the full description of job.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. It's the every other weekly at this point too.
Shit.
Well, I think the Herald is good, and I think putting it on our website and asking all of our friends and neighbors to share it as widely as possible. We obviously can put it on the Facebook page as well as our website. So I think we can get pretty good coverage. And I think the people that are interested, there's going to be some people that are interested already.
And there's always word of mouth.
Yeah.
You all know who some of the best candidates are, and letting them know about this would be great.
Do we need a motion to make any of these things happen?
We do, John. Would you like to make it?
I make a motion that we put on the RFQ that all application materials must be received by 5 o'clock November the 8th, and that the consultants will be considered at the meeting on November the 10th. That a notice of qualifications will be delivered or sent to the Herald by by Bob Carmichael or Robin with a link to our website, and that the application or the description of job will be on our website.
I hear a second.
I'll second.
Hugh seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye. This is going to take some nimble dancing by Bob and by Robin to get this done.
Yep.
Start the music.
All right. The next item on our agenda. Let me see if I can find our agenda now on all these pages. We still have a fair amount of business to do. Data sharing agreement with Washington State Auditor's Office.
So I can report on this one. I met with the manager of the local auditor's office and her boss, who is not local, because I raised a couple issues. The main one being that there was no indemnification provision in the data sharing agreement. And to my way of thinking, that should be in almost any contract of this nature. As a practical matter, while it's highly unlikely, but if the district in sharing its data with SAO had that data compromised and through some kind of security breach that was SAO's fault, I believe SAO should indemnify the district. If the district were to get sued, for example, over something like that, I think they should get, the SAO should step up and defend the district, essentially, and make sure the district was held harmless. And that's not the way the agreement reads. I told them I thought that was something they should have in there. They haven't, they've gotten a lot of signatures on these documents from local governments, and they've managed to get a lot of them without having an agreement like that. So I don't know if they're going to be willing to add the provision I requested. I had the meeting with them last week. Their attorney was on vacation. Fortunately, he wasn't there, so they're going to talk to him this week. I have not heard anything back from them, so I don't know what the current status of their review on that issue is. I also raised another couple issues. One is that if there was any legal action, the way the agreement was written, it would have to be in Thurston County as the venue. And I said, no, it should be Whatcom County because you're dealing with a small district in Whatcom County. And they agreed to add that change to it. There was another one they agreed to add. The one that they have not agreed is the one I just mentioned, indemnification, and that's currently under review. I know they're anxious to get these agreements signed. They have a mandate from the legislature to do that. So that's why I met with them last week, knowing the meeting would be tonight. And I think that this probably can wait, frankly, until the November 10th meeting. I would expect we'll hear back by then, whether they'll agree or not. And then the board can make a decision. If they don't agree to include it, I'm not sure I would counsel you not to sign it. We do need to get an audit when an audit is due. I'm not sure what their position will be on going forward with an audit if we don't sign it. But it's definitely an issue worth pushing back at them on, and that's what I've done.
We'll take that as an informational item then. Thank you very much, and we'll take it up at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Great. Any other old business? Hearing none, let's go on to the new business. And we once again have a debt of gratitude to Venza. Thank you so much for organizing this event. I enjoyed participating, and I really appreciated your support and coming around and being such a wonderful host. Would you care to deliver your report?
Yeah, so I have to say that I have two dry, very dry, full spreadsheets of columns and numbers. And which is just the transcription of the actual survey sheets to a spreadsheet. But to kind of make sense of them, I need more time to do bar graphs and, you know, pie charts or whatever. But just as an overview, I want to say the Trail Visitors Survey was conducted on Saturday, October 9th and Monday, October 11th. It was a great success because the survey takers were enthusiastic, Frank and Barbara amongst them. And we even had more people volunteering who then ultimately couldn't fill the spots that were still available. So we had, what was my number? I think 36 people who actually did the survey, and there were 40 or more who actually volunteered, but then I couldn't necessarily do it. Some people did more than 1 hour. Some people did an hour each day, both Saturday and Monday, or 3 hours. So anyway, it was really good. It should be noted that Saturday, the weather was mild. It was a cloudy day. And it did start drizzling around 4 o'clock, but then raining, truly raining steadily by 5. So we were going to do the survey from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. But Saturday at 5 o'clock, I went around and called it off. So, so Saturday's numbers do not have that final thing. But the other thing was that on Monday, it was a beautiful sunny day, a little chilly, but sunny. It was also a holiday, which I hadn't considered when we set that date, but it was Indigenous Peoples Day, or the old Columbus Day. So it was a lovely sunny day, but you can't say it was a regular day because I don't know, I think the kids were still in school. Some people had off from work. Anyway, the count was at least 229 folks entering the forest on Saturday and at least 290 visiting on Monday. So between 200 and 300 people going in and out. That was pretty good. The highest volume by far came in from the north entrance, which is, as you know, from Fairhaven Park and 18th Street. We had the counters at the stone benches that Recreation Northwest put up. So that was 131 coming in that day and going out. And I'm sorry, and also Monday, it was coincidentally 131, which is unusual to have the same exact number, but that's how it worked out. At Viewcrest, the count was 47 coming in on Saturday and 68 on Monday. So Monday still, that sunny day, was bigger volume. At the Interurban, there were 51 going into the forest on Saturday and 91 on Monday. And then children counted were 19 on Saturday and only 9 on Monday, which makes me think that some were doing schoolwork. Now, as far as the canines, there were 180 coming and going. And I did the math with 229 people entering and 70 dogs, that proportion is 30%, 31%. And then on Monday, the proportion was up to 33%. So I didn't really do the data on bicycles, but there were fewer bicycles than dogs, I would have to say. And also some of the bicycles counted were actually scooters, or not scooters, but those things on wheels that teenagers ride. I forgot what they're called, but they're, you know, they're like, well, they're a toy.
Like a skateboard with one wheel.
Yeah, like a skateboard with one wheel. I don't know the exact name. So we counted, I think some people counted those as bicycles too. Frank saw the Bobcat on the Interurban as he was chatting with a group of runners. There were some groups, but as Wendy Shearer was hoping to document educational groups of young children, we did not see any educational groups of young children. The only groups we saw were either family groups or jogging or walking clubs, kind of. And many of the comments that Barbara and others took down, which I have yet to sit down and type out the comments, which I still plan on doing that, but many of the comments were like, please preserve the wild nature of this forest. So, I mean, everybody who uses it is interested in maintaining the ecological value of the place, even the people with their dogs. So I think really a huge thing going forward is education of the dog people. And because we know that a third of the users are dog people. So that's, I don't know if we'll be able to exclude them, Hugh, as I would like to, like at the Stimson. Maybe that's a long-term goal and not a short-term one. I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but
These are carnivores, you know.
yeah. So anyway, that's the extent of my report. I welcome additional technical help if anyone wants to work with the spreadsheets and make them fancy. Robin. So yeah, I will send them all in an email to you. And then I have a separate spreadsheet with the numbers that Frank started taking on Saturday of just people going up and down the interurban trail without going into the forest. And those raw totals were 330 on, oh, I'm sorry, that's total adults, 310 on Saturday and 352 on Monday. So that's a lot of people using the interurban too.
You know, Vincent, one of the things I noticed is the vast majority of people with dogs actually had them on leashes. It was
Yeah,
unusual to see a dog off leash.
Yeah, there were
some-
just a few off leash actually, but then some people said, one of the comments was, yeah, I bring my dog on leash, but then once we're in the forest away from eyes, I let my dog run loose. So, I mean, it's not 100% thing, the being on leash.
For sure.
Yeah. So, education, we have to educate. I can't.
They have a off-leash area down by the sewer plant already, right?
Yes, that's true.
Which is not far from.
It's not far. So I'm good. Unless anyone has a question.
Any questions for Vincent?
It's wonderful work, Vincent. Thank you so much.
I've got a question about the north entrance.
Yeah.
Did you differentiate between people that were driving, that were using the parking lot, from people that were walking, coming through Fairhaven Park?
No, we did not, because we did not have enough people, because you got to figure each day, each spot needed 10 people, like between 8 a.m. and 5 or 6 p.m. It's 10 slots. So that's a lot of manpower. So we couldn't differentiate. And so we didn't look at parking at all. And I have to say, most people, I think, walk from the neighborhoods.
Quite a few of the interurban users actually met there and came in groups. One thing that I noticed, there's quite a few running or walking groups that aren't really using the forest at all. They're using just the interurban. And many of them said they do go into the forest, but that's not what's going on. When they park up by that veterinary clinic near the interurban and then come down together.
Yeah.
It's a very, very common thing. Yeah.
Barbara,
think
do
a lot
you
of
have any
evidence
comments?
Is local.
Well, Barbara was one of the survey takers. We can't hear you.
You're muted, Barbara.
It's probably because I was sending you all a chat. The people that I didn't talk to, most of the people at least had a little conversation with as they were coming and going. The thing I noticed that people who had their dogs off leash, just as they're coming around, exit, put their dog on leash. So I don't think you can go by that. I think people really do let their dogs off leash. But I'm really concerned about bicycles. And my big concern about bicycles, and of course I couldn't talk to any cyclists because they just go right on by. And part of it is, and I'm a cyclist, a fair weather cyclist. And I use the interurban a lot. It's right next to the woods. And I don't really think there's any real advantage to being in the woods on a bicycle. And if we have small paths, you're not going to have bicycles and people on a small path. The bicycles are going to dominate and you're going to have to get out of their way. And already in Fairhaven Park, I dodge bicycles. The other concern I have is it's a little bit like the dog issue, that you see people have their dog on leash till nobody's looking. The same thing with bicycles. They'll stay on the path till nobody's looking, and then they will go off and create, because that's the big, fun thing apparently. And Fairhaven Park has just been destroyed by off-path bicycles. And have a real problem, with that. So I'd really like to see us limit bicycles, have no bicycles in the park, in the woods.
Barbara, one additional thing was that that one of the people utilizing the park took us over to yet a new illegally constructed bike jump and bank trail over on the southwest corner of the park, southeast corner of the park, pardon me.
Yeah.
It's sort of disconcerting to see, actually. Vincent and I went back and looked and it's sort of almost contiguous with the work being done just outside the park. And I think we're going to have to give some detailed thought about how to limit that, maybe even build a fence, to prevent people doing that. Because not only is it, is it destructive in and of itself, but it also allows for invasive species to enter the park by having that disturbed soil. So there's a huge downside to that. And it's a big problem. Well, Vincent, thank you very much for that report. I think it was very valuable, and I think hopefully it will augment the city's planning process in a way that's meaningful. I think it was a very, very useful exercise. We do have a few more important issues, and time is moving on. So if we could move on to review of the 2021 budget for the upcoming budget year. And that would be 2022 and 2023. Are there things that aren't in this budget that we need to put in it? And then when are we going to stop the tax levy, I think is one of the questions. So have people had a chance to look at that budget, and are there things that aren't in it that need to be in it?
Can I make a couple of comments here before we jump into it? So I just wanted to say that when I did my budget up, I put paying off the loan into the next year because that was the way that we had, because I was only going with what the actual approved budget we had for 2021, which only included going up to that 695,000 number. And so, but when Karen with the treasurer's office did it, she included paying off the loan in 2021. So and our expenses are a little bit different, but some of that's just estimates anyway. Pardon?
Did you say 2021 or 2022?
No, she had us paying it off in 2021. We do have enough cash on hand to pay it off in 2021. And she just made that decision on her own. I sent her what I had done, which was finishing paying it off in 2022. And I'm not saying which one is right. I'm just explaining the difference between our two budgets. So.
Right. And did she, for example, include in her version the amount we're gonna have to give to the land trust for the legal assurance that they will be able to defend it over time? Or was that not included in her budget?
In her budget in 2021, she did not include the additional, just the $5,000 reserve that I included in my adjusted numbers. She didn't include that. And she didn't include I don't think she included the 30,000 for the consultant. And then in 2022, she didn't include the 25,000 reserve, or I think another 10,000, which was, I think, maybe the negotiation fees. I don't think she included that. And then she didn't include any of the 2023. And of course, all this depends on when it actually ends and everything. And I tried to give realistic numbers with a little bit of an edge so that there was a little bit of wiggle room there in case things go higher. And yeah.
Election costs.
Yeah, I looked at the last two elections and the last one was up only to 5,000. The one before was even less. Or one was 56 and then the last one was like 4,600. So that's why I put it at 6,000. And that will either come in this year or the beginning of next year. And I estimated the audit at the end. I don't think we're not on schedule to have another audit till 2023. I don't think. Yeah, we did one. So there's only one more coming up.
Thank God.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin, for that presentation. Bob, do we need to decide this tonight, or can we defer this till the November 10th meeting?
We need to do tonight is we need to set the public hearing for the budget, and we need to set the public hearing for the levy. You will approve the budget and the levy following those public hearings at your next meeting. So that's when you make your formal decision.
So the public hearing will be in November, right?
That will be November 10th.
Yep. Great.
So what would be helpful would be to have a preliminary direction on the budget. And once we know that, we can have a levy ready and prepared as well for adoption at the November 10th meeting. If the board wants to consider sort of a range of options, we can certainly set, we could do a number of different potential levy amounts and have the board look at that and make a decision on which one it wants to go for. It does seem to me, based on these numbers from Robin, that some levy is going to be required for 2022. I know she was working with Catherine in my office on this for the last couple days. If you're looking, given the cash on hand and the other obligations, and Robin did budget, I think, pretty conservatively here. If we levied $136,000, that would cover 2 years worth of expenses. If I'm reading what you have here correctly, Robin.
Yes.
2022 and 2023. Basically, what she's saying is you need 135,437. That would be a levy. If you bump that up to 136,000, that would be a levy rate of 4.6 cents per thousand. As you know, your levy rate has every year been 28 cents a thousand per the basically a commitment that was made in terms of what the levy amount would be. So if you did that, then that would be enough funds for 2 years, and theoretically you would not need a levy for 2023 at all, if these numbers are correct. But it would give you the latitude then, if you had to, you could do a small levy in 2023. So I think the idea of front loading the levy this year makes some sense, to give the board the ability to levy more if it needs to, but not levy more than it has to. If you wanted to say set different parameters and say, for, you know, say you want to know what a 5 cent per thousand levy would look like, that would be 148,000. So that would be 12,000 more than what Robin has here. If you wanted to reduce it to 3 cents, you know, that would be a similar reduction going the other way. We could certainly put different levy amounts, as I said, for the board's consideration at the next meeting, and then you can make that decision.
It seems like the one thing we do need to do, and now is the time to do it, is we should get back to the land trust. I think we've got a pretty good idea of what the ultimately the conditions in the, how the conditions will change in our conservation easement. I think there is consensus on the steering committee that it will be substantially changed, much more in the direction, if not entirely, almost exactly the same as what we had discussed as being desirable. So it'll be a much narrower, much more defined thing that they would need to defend. But I think we need to get back to them and say, how much money are we going to need to put into that fund, so that there will be, basically it works similar to a risk pool, where you put so much money in and then you're able to withdraw what you need to do the legal defense at a later date. And they'd estimated between $50,000 and $200,000. But I think now we've got more specific details. So part of that, though, I think when we do that, Bob, is to, when we talk with them, is how sure are we that we'll actually get that in the final agreement with the city? If the steering committee recommends that, and if that's adopted by the city as the long-term plan, as part of the master planning process, do you think it's a foregone conclusion that we'll be able to change the conservation easement in that same way?
I do think it's highly likely that we will.
Okay, so then I'll try to get back a hold of the land trust and re-engage them around that issue. They thought that they might need a whole year to put that through there. They've got a rather complex formal process now for approving taking on this sort of thing. And with something with this big a price tag for them to defend it, I think they're going to put it through the whole process. And I think we will be expected to put up whatever amount of money it is that they believe they'll need. So I think now is the time to initiate that discussion, and that will inform the budgeting process. So I'll try to do that in the next few days, begin to see how we can get on their agenda again.
And it's important to understand the estimate Robin has in terms of what would need to be levied, 135,000. The biggest chunk is driven by that, what we're setting aside for the land trust. And you've honed in on that, Frank. So you're right, 200,000. If it's only 50,000, all of a sudden we don't really need a levy at all. But the problem is I'm not sure you're going to get an answer from the land trust before you need to make a decision.
Yeah, I think we should assume the worst, actually, and then the residual money has got to go to the purposes of our organization. So we'll turn it over to the city, but I think it would be, I presume it's the city we turn it over to.
It's correct. It goes to the general fund, and the statute does not say it goes anywhere else. So we would have to negotiate something separate with the city to make sure that they would put it towards this particular park, which I think we all believe they should, but they don't have to do that. And in fact, the statute says the general fund. So it's something we need to address with the city.
So that would be a side agreement, basically, of goodwill that they would spend it on this parcel in some way.
something like that.
All right. With all that discussion, is there more discussion? Again, I think this is not an action item, rather an informational piece that doesn't require action. Unless, Bob, is there anything that we need to adopt? Or
Well,
is this-
as I said, you do need to, somebody needs to make a motion and it needs to be approved to set the public hearing on the budget for the meeting on November 10th and also to set the public hearing on the levy for the next board meeting on November 10th. Both those motions need to be made.
So this is a full enough discussion of this informational item on the budget, then we need to establish those two public hearings. Do I hear a motion for that?
So moved. I make a motion that we present the budget figures at the next meeting on November 10th for approval, and that we suggest a levy at the next meeting on November 10th. I'm sure that that's inadequate. How would I put it, Bob?
And that, to add on to what you just said, John, and that there be a public hearing scheduled on both of those items at the November 10th.
And that there would be a public hearing on both of those items at the next meeting on November 10th. Do you want to read that back, Robin, or go ahead?
That public hearing be set for November 10th for the tax levy, and a public hearing be scheduled for November 10th to approve the budget, or for the budget
For 2022.
for 2022.
Okay.
So there's a motion. Do I hear a second?
So I have we do this hiring of the consultant at the same meeting?
Correct.
We're going to have this giant crowd of angry taxpayers and then do the consultant after that, or before that, or what's the timing for these things?
I think we're cutting it down to 4 cents from 28 cents. There probably won't be an angry crowd, although there might be. You never know.
I think we're going to catch flack one way or the other, Hugh. So, just let Robin organize the meeting.
Okay, I'll second your motion.
So John moved and Hugh seconded. Further discussion. And John Blessing's just smiling like a Cheshire cat there. He doesn't have to be part of this. All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
I see broad consensus about that. John McLaughlin, you were off my screen. Everybody voted yes?
Aye.
Okay, there we go. And
John Imus raised his left hand.
now he's
That's
elected. Oh, all right, this passes unanimously then. Thank you.
And what, if I could, what I'll do, unless directed otherwise now, is prepare the levy as if it's 136,000 that we're trying to raise. And then I'll probably do two other levies, one a little above that and one a little below that, just so you can see the differences. You've got three choices.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the urban forestry plan letter that John McLaughlin was coerced into preparing at the last meeting. There were, you may recall, there were a couple of items in the urban forestry plan that really didn't quite measure up or make sense, and John was going to prepare a letter about that. One item was it refers to our our beloved forest as a young forest tall, and it is a mature forest and a mature, it holds mature wetland, a forested wetland as well. And we kind of wanted that recognized in the city's planning. And there was a
Frank, I can save you time. I'm
Okay, great.
still working on that. I haven't done it yet.
great,
We'll get to it very soon.
great. Well, there were two issues, and thanks, John. And we did coerce you into it, so we'll give you a break this time and not hang you by your toenails.
I've been working on, students are working on beaver dam analog projects.
Cool.
Pollinator pathway projects and all kinds of relevant stuff.
Awesome. How exciting. We'll move that forward to the next agenda. Any other new business, things that we've overlooked and weren't on the agenda? Anything pressing for our consideration this evening?
I was thinking that maybe at our next meeting with the park people, we should make it since they always talk about low hanging fruit, that they should get the entrance signage figured out and fixed up and discussed and polished up before they could at least do the entrances, would help, I think.
I think that's a good idea, Hugh. How would we execute that?
Well, they're always talking about they have a sign shop. They could show the group what they're planning for signs. We could sort of critique it a little bit, and they could get feedback, and then they could print some, get some up. You don't have to do the whole park, or the whole forest. They could do the entrance, or the biggest entrances. This is where people run their cars over. I don't know. Just the entrances.
I think it's a good idea, Hugh. Is that something that we could ask them to do? Would you be willing to write a letter about that, Hugh, to them for us?
A letter? They don't
Email?
Call them up and tell them.
We go to that meeting. They have another meeting coming up here, right? Was it the 12th?
So by meeting, you mean the long-term master planning process meeting?
Yes, right, yeah.
Sure. I mean, if you like, I think I'm going to be there. Who else is planning on being at that meeting?
Well, I'll try and, I'm not
Yeah.
going anywhere,
So if that's do we want to vote on that? Is that the sense of the board?
I'm for it. When is the next steering committee meeting?
The 12th of November.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of those
Okay.
days.
You want to vote on that? Is that a motion then, Hugh?
All right, I move that we recommend to the master planning group that we get some signage up, at least at the entrances. And they present the designs, and we can critique it a little bit and polish it.
As soon as possible, right? That's the idea.
Yeah.
Second.
Discussion? You're a quiet group tonight. All those in favor, say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Everybody now, that's unanimous. Great. Thank you. We do have some other important business. We need to move forward now to the monthly expenses and cash flow sheet. You can see petty cash was at $2,967. I think that's where we want it. The treasury report says that we have a beginning unencumbered balance of $241,778. We have an unencumbered cash balance as of 9/30 of $253,008. And we received a tax revenue of $16,084. And we paid out $2,553 in operating expenses and $202,301 to the loan to the city of Bellingham. Our current debt as of 9/30/21 is $304,000 and $304,354. Is there a motion and that's informational. Do we need a motion to approve, to accept that, or is that just informational?
It's information.
And then we have the district payroll, which you got a copy of, showing that Robin Albro's 27 hours in September. Total gross is $675. Do I have a motion for that, to accept that?
I move to accept it.
I second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. The consent agenda motion to approve the following payments. Payment as of September 15, 2001, invoice 95963 for Carmichael and Clark for $1,899.50. Payment of the August 31st, 2001 invoice 33075 for $30 from Watt County Administrative Services for processing payroll. Do I hear a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And just a reminder, Robin will send 3 of us emails. We'll have to confirm that all this happened, and we'll just send back an email with your name on it saying you respond confirming that you approved paying these bills.
What does Robin want to say?
I just wanted to say that Frank James, John Brown, and Hugh Beatty, I already sent you the email because the end of the month is on the weekend. They want to get this first thing tomorrow morning. So if you can send me your approval tonight, that would be great.
Okay,
Thank
do it
you.
right now. Good job, Frank.
Thank you. I think we're done. If there's nothing else, I'd like to thank everybody for being here and look forward to your report next meeting, John, that letter. I think it's a good letter, an important one. So thanks for doing it. And Bob, thanks for all the work you've done to move things forward. Thanks, team.
Well, you're
So
welcome.
we'll now adjourn the meeting. We'll reconvene November 10th at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
See you
Good
then.
night to all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.